Now let's pass the microphone down to Mr. Brater. I'm going to start with my law this time. Now we put him on the hot seat. Okay, and the question. In 2010, after facing a loss of revenue due to lower property values, several commissioners voted to raise the tax rate from 44.5 cents to 48.5 cents per $100 valuation, which netted a 5% increase in property tax revenue. Do you think their decision was justified? Why or why not?
I think given the situation that they had before them, I think their action was justified. I think you have to look at the big picture, and if you put it in context, in Iredell County, the counties that surround us, Catawba County tax rate is 9% higher than ours, Lincoln's is 23, Alexander's 25, Davies 28, Rowan's 28, Cabarrus is 30% higher, and Mecklenburg is 68% higher than our property tax. I think we do a lot with a little in Iredell County. But I remember a quote from Commissioner Johnson at the time that this was going on, and I think I have it with me. Countless cuts have been made, fat's been trimmed, therefore he supported a 48.5% because it shields against future drawdowns in the fund balance. So I think the commissioners were very prudent at that time. They took a good conservative approach to trying to do the best they could with what they had to work with, and I think it was appropriate given all the circumstances.
Let's move right on up. Mr. Moody, the question. In 2010, after facing the loss of revenue, the county tax rate was increased from 44.5 to 48.5 cents per $100 valuation, which netted a 5% increase in tax revenue. How do you feel about that decision? You feel it was justified?
Well, I'll say it directly. I feel it was justified. How do I personally feel about it? I think it's lamentable that we were faced with that decision. The role of county commission and knowing the board makeup at that time, they didn't just say, "Oh, well, we have a problem. Let's throw a tax increase at it." They came to this decision after much deliberation, after looking at all the services that we have to provide, and had to make a hard decision. The good news is as Mr. Brater did, again, thank you for the numbers, is that Iredell is still holding the line and is doing more with less than our neighbors. That does not give us a blank check to raise taxes at will and just take the easy way out. So it was justified at the time because you've got to pay the bills, you've got to service the debt, you have unfunded mandates, and you have loss in revenue. Personally, I would have done it just like they did, kicking and screaming. But I think they did it prudent, and it was justified at the time.
Ms. Stewart, same question.
I think there's a distinct advantage of being there when the budget is negotiated in order to understand whether it's a necessary tax increase or not. And I think most people are very fearful of tax increases, especially if they're ever planning to run for office again. And as unfortunate as that may be in their decision making, it does take place. I went to the retreat that they had on the budget, which was very informative, but it still doesn't give you all the details. What they discuss in retreat is nothing compared to what they're going to hear from the finance officer and the other people that are having to deal with the shortcomings. So I wouldn't try to second guess them about whether it was necessary or not. I can just tell you that I remember very well the first year that I took office, and the Democrats had spent all the fund balance and there was no money to do anything with. We had to raise taxes in order to make payroll the first year I was elected. Those are not easy decisions to raise taxes. And I really don't think you have anybody on the present board or any board that I have remembrance of who wanted to raise taxes so they could have lots of money to spend.
Thank you. Mr. Boon?
I guess I'm in the minority here. If I'd been on the board last year, I would have voted against the tax increase. The commissioners increased the tax rate by 4 cents. They could have increased it 2 cents or less, probably a penny and a half or so. That would have raised enough revenue to have compensated for the decreased property values and added a little bit to the fund balance. The budget actually increased spending by something over $4 million. I would have very early in the budget process instructed the county manager and finance people to find some ways to make some, have some efficiencies and make some cuts. We hear a lot about Iredell County's tax rate. The only reason we have a relatively low tax rate is because we have a much higher tax base than many other counties. If you take the amount of property tax we collect per person, per capita, ad valorem property tax, we are slightly above the state average. We collect more per capita than both Rowan and Catawba counties, which are neighboring counties similar to us demographically. We collect a whole lot more than a, say, more rural county like Alexander. So we are not down on the bottom in spending at all. We're not the highest in the state, but we're far from it being the lowest. We're about average.
Thank you.
Could you repeat the question?
The question. In 2010, facing a loss of revenue due to lower property values, several commissioners voted to raise the tax rate from 44.5 cents to 48.5 cents per $100 valuation. That is a 5% increase in property tax revenue. Would you agree with their decision? Why or why not?
Thank you for repeating that. We hear so many answers. Sometimes it's hard to get back to the original question. I do think a tax increase might have been justified, but I do not think it should have been a full 5%. I also agree that there should have been other cuts and adjustments made on the budget because, as Mr. Boon stated, we do have a higher population base that kind of skews those numbers if you're looking at them, comparing them to other areas. I would not vote to raise taxes at all. I'm a strong Tea Party advocate, taxed enough already. I don't think we need any more new taxes in the county, period, for the foreseeable future. And that's my position.
Mr. Brown, same question.
Well, Mr. Boone, you're not alone, because I'm right there with you. I think we raised it a little too much, and I think we should have found it other places. As Ken made a comment a while ago, we've laid off several people in the county. You know, I've been around the county, been a long county office, and I've already said this before. There's still room. We've got to find that room. We've got to cut back. And you know, I don't believe we should cut our firemen or policemen back, and I don't believe, you know, if we need a jail, we got to build a jail, but let's not build a Taj Mahal. You know, when we do something in this county, have you seen our fire departments? They're the nicest looking $1 million fire departments you've ever seen. Now, buying $1 million fire truck's one thing because you need to put out fires, but why do you have to have the nicest in the area? You go any place in the country, we've got the nicest fire departments around. I'd love to live in it. I mean, they're nice. So we've got to put a limit to what we do. We are spoiled rotten. And we've had money coming in, and we decided we need money, so we raised it to where we need it. We can't do that. We should have figured out another way to get the money in. And what happens if we go into another deep recession? What are we going to do then? Are we going to raise taxes again? Ken says we're not going to do it, but you know, if we don't have the money, where are we going to find it? We need to figure out where we can find the money without putting it on to everybody. There's some people that are fixed income. They can't afford this. We do have a large base because you look at Lake Norman. Land out there is not $10,000 an acre, guys. You're talking about $1 million an acre land. So those guys are paying a lot of money. So we need to figure out how to do this without raising taxes. I'm totally against raising taxes.